A review on the 4th. Goblet of Fire. Golly. The Tri-Wizard Tournament, the Port Keys, the Quidditch World Cup, Cedric Diggory, the Yule Ball, Bad Eye Moody, let's dive in. My name is Zach, here to talk about books that aren't whack. Part of my rambling tonight is about Harry Potter. I've been thinking about a book club for some time, or a book channel, because I enjoy books but don't have too many friends that enjoy talking about them. So it's my hope that creating this channel, I'll be able to fully express all the books that I dig and hopefully share that with you. For tonight, I have worked through books 1 through 4, this being the last of which. Part 2 of this is going to be more about life lessons and big takeaways, highlights, and then lastly, talk about my favorite chapter, and then want to learn, what your favorite chapter was, and maybe I'll reread it, because damn, this book. I mean, you could just put it under your pillow and go to sleep with it. It's so good. So I'm 30 years old, just now reading Harry Potter for the first time, and I'm really at a toss-up between Goblet of Fire and Prisoner of Azkaban being my favorite so far. It's hard to judge, because 3 really is the setup, the foundation for a lot of the story here. The last part of this video is going to be talking about favorite chapter, 2 favorite quotes, and 3 dog-eared pages. Also, I want to hear what yours are, so stay around for that. Let's go ahead and dive in, because this, honestly, I was kind of intimidated with this. I don't know about you guys, but I have not read many 700-page books. Now, thankfully, J.K. Rowling uses a pretty big font and doesn't fill up from margin to margin, so it's not that hard to read. It's a quick read. Yeah, it was intimidating. That's it's half my head, and I got a big noggin. So starting off with this book, we start with the Riddle House murder, which is, golly, what a dark way to start a book. It's really the laying that the land of Hogwarts is about to get much larger, more complex, and darker, with the relationship of Wormtail and Voldemort growing in his strength. And so we start out with the foreground of that, and then we work into the Quidditch World Cup, where the Irish are playing the Bulgarians, who Victor Crumb is brought into the scene, and meet Winky, who is the Crouch's house elf, who plays a part in the plot here, especially that empty seat next to Winky, if you know what I'm talking about. And anyway, so we're at the World Cup, and man, there's just so many good parts. Fred and George betting on the World Cup, the Bagman and Bagman in the end being a D-bag and not paying them, and then Harry tosses them the coins. Anyway, it may be recency bias, because I just finished this literally yesterday, and I have already started Order of Phoenix, but this series is incredible, and it's no wonder that this is the most sold series of all time. But anyway, we work to the Quidditch World Cup. The Irish win, even though the Bulgarians, Victor Crumb, gets the snitch, as predicted by the twins. After that ensues, the Dark Mark is then cast into the sky, and everybody's running about, and they're trying to figure out, who did it. At first, there was discrepancy on if it was Harry or Winky, because Harry didn't have his wand, but Winky had it, the house elf of the Crouches. Anyway, the Death Eaters came to the scene, and this was the first of them. We had heard of the Death Eaters, but them actually making an appearance happens here. And so then we go to Hogwarts, and there's the announcement of the Tri-Wizard Cup. This is almost like an Olympics, but in the wizardly world, and there's only, 1 participant per school. There are these crazy events that these kids must partake in. Before doing so, there's the Goblet of Fire, and this is where kids under or over 16, or is it 17? I'm having a hard time remembering. Anyway, there's an age threshold that you have to be over in order to partake in this. So Harry is under that, Ron is under that, Hermione is under that, and even the twins, Fred and George, the Weasleys, Ron's brothers, are under that by a month. And so they try to drink an aging potion, and they get in the circle, but then, they grow a beard because there's been a hex on it. And so there are just so many whimsical, fun fun bits there. Somehow, impossibly, Harry being under that age threshold, his name becomes one of the few that the Goblet of Fire spits out. So we have Cedric Diggory from Hufflepuff in Hogwarts. We have Victor Crumb from the Durmstrange, and then Fleur Delacour from the Beauxbatons. When Harry's name comes out, he is just so confused, and this is the first time we see Dumbledore angry. That's crazy, and I think it's mostly he's angry because he knows. This is my assumption. Maybe you can correct me, but he knows that Harry is in jeopardy, and people have died in the past from partaking in the Triwizard Tournament, and so there's the question of how did Harry get past the spell to enter the Goblet of Fire? Ron is mad at him because Ron thinks Harry's lying to him about how he got past the circle to enter his name into the cup. Anyway, lo and behold, Harry Potter becomes entered into the Triwizard Tournament because his name comes out of the Goblet of Fire. There are multiple plots that are going on as all this is going about. We are introduced to our new professor of the dark arts, which is Mad-Eye Moody, and Moody is an Auror, and an Auror is someone who basically catches the bad guys. He put half of the prisoners into the Prisoners of Azkaban, most of those being Death Eaters or people supporting Lord Voldemort, and so Mad-Eye Moody is respected, and he is this crazy mad eye, like literally eyes can see behind him. He's this professor that is just highly revered, instantly drawing respect because people know that he has seen it. He has, been a part of the madness that is the battle of good and evil and putting a lot of those evil people into the Azkaban prison. One of his classes, he ends up, and we'll talk about this bookmark page because it was one of the three, or actually teaches all three of the unforgivable curses. But after teaching that, the students know that he is real. Mad-Eye Moody is certainly an interesting dark arts professor that we get introduced to in this book. The first of the three for the Triwizard Tournament, the first task is getting a golden egg from the dragon. And there are 4 different dragons because there are 4 different champions that we already mentioned. And Harry, of course, draws the hardest one, the Horntail. He's trying to figure out how he's going to go about it. And he actually ends up spilling the beans even to Cedric and gives him the insight of what the first task is going to be. So he's quite a caregiving and benevolent champion, as he is given the keys to the kingdom to a competitor, but they are in the same school, and Harry's a good dude. And Cedric Diggory also was at the Quidditch World Cup, and his father knew Ron's father, and they used the same port key, which was a boot, to get to the Quidditch World Cup. And anyway, so Harry lets Cedric know, hey, it's going to be dragons. Thankfully, Cedric gets an easy one. I'm sure he's pumped about that. But Harry draws the Horntail. Now, thankfully, Mad-Eye was looking out for Harry and told Harry about the Aurorio spell, I believe it is. And that's where you can summon anything, because you can only go into this not with your broom, but with your wand. And so, him being an amazing Quidditch player and broom flyer, he summons his broom and skirts past the Horntail and takes the egg. And we have things in this book like the Yule Ball, and the Yule Ball being basically a tradition where there's a big dance, and there's this, it's like the first introduction to romance that we see, and there's this hidden part the whole time about Hermione and somebody asking her, but Ron and Harry don't see her as like a pretty girl because they're like friends. Anyway, there's this elusive plot thickening of who asked Hermione, and it comes to be Victor Crumb, and it like shocks Ron and upsets him, and he says, you're fraternizing with the enemy, how could you do that? And in reality, he was just jealous. It's a really interesting dynamic of where the lines start to blur between friendship and romantic partner. And so Hermione's like, hey, if you're pissed, maybe you'll see me and ask me next time. Anyway, there's the Yule Ball, and Hagrid dances with Madame Maxime, who is also part giant, it seems. McGonagall dances with Dumbledore, and Ron and Harry wait till last minute, and Harry doesn't get to ask Cho Chang because she's already asked by Cedric Diggory, so they end up taking the Havarti and Lavender sisters. Both Ron and Harry, because they waited too long, kind of missed their opportunity with the women that they wanted to go with, or girls. I guess they're book 4, they're 14, so whatever. But life lesson learned. If you sit around and wait, life will pass you by, as they say. Anyway, we come to the second task, and this is something that Harry continues to kick down the road. I think the first one was like in November, and this one's in like April or March or something. And he waits until 2 days beforehand, and he is just scouring through books. Cedric returned the favor and told him to take the egg, because the egg gives a clue to what task 2 is. And he tells him to take the egg into the prefect bathroom, and Moaning Myrtle is there, and she says, take it underwater and listen, and there's this riddle. And so they find out that they're going to be having to save their loved ones from underwater, and he's trying to figure out, how in the heck am I going to be underwater for an hour? And so he's scouring through books and trying to figure out what could do it for him the night before. And lo and behold, Dobby wakes him up the next morning with some gillyweed. And gillyweed does it. He ends up being the first to the 4 victims. However, Cedric ends up getting there for Cho. Victor ends up getting there for Hermione. But Fleur Delacour was captured by the... what are those freaking little sea gargoyle demon-like critters? What are those called? Grindylows? Grindylows. I think it's Grindylows. Anyway, Fleur Delacour didn't make it in time, and so Harry ends up saving both Ron and Fleur Delacour's little sister. Even though he didn't make it in the time mark, he was respected by all, except for Igor, who is the Durmstrang head, like Dumbledore equivalent for them. And so then Harry and Cedric are tied, leading into the third task. But while all this is happening, Barty Crouch is supposed to be partaking in this judging of this Triwizard tournament. However, we're finding out that he is becoming mad, and actually, on a sidebar conversation that Harry and Victor Crumb have, Barty Crouch ends up coming and speaking gibberish to them. And Harry's like, wait, I'll go to Hogwarts because I know how to get to Dumbledore's office. You stay here with Barty. And they end up returning, and Victor Crumb is petrified or on the ground, and Barty Crouch is nowhere to be seen. And Harry ends up going to Dumbledore's office, and he finds the Pensieve, which is basically this chamber that stores memories, and he is able to go back to when Barty Crouch was this ambitious, new, power-hungry minister of magic, and he's basically giving the sentencing or the punishment for all these people that are affiliated with Voldemort. Igor Karkaroff, is it Karkaroff? I think it's I forget his last name, but anyway, the Durmstrang guy ends up testifying on behalf of all these Death Eaters, one of which being Snape, but Dumbledore testifies for Snape and says, no, he's good, I vouch for him. Igor ends up throwing Barty Crouch Jr.'s name out there. Barty Crouch is saying, hey, I'm not affiliated with him, he's no longer my son, I see him as nothing. We come to find out, though, Barty Crouch's wife's dying wish was to save Barty Crouch Jr. She switches place with Barty Crouch under some potion, gets Jr. out of Azkaban, and he remains hidden from the general public at Barty Crouch Sr.'s house. And Winky, coming back to the beginning, is always vouching for Barty Crouch Jr. to be more humanized and to be out in the public and to just experience life and to have another shot. However, Barty Crouch Jr. strikes again. And whenever Barty Crouch Jr. sits beside Winky at the Quidditch World Cup under the invisibility cloak, he ends up stealing Harry Potter's wand and joins the forces of Voldemort. Dun, dun, done. Actually, all that is not revealed until after the third task. So that's kind of my bad on the ordering there, but anyway, there's so much that goes into this book. It's so good. Anyway, the third task being the maze. All these champions have to get through the maze. The maze becomes this psychological gauntlet of nothing being what it seems, and Victor Crumb is performing under one of the unforgivable curses, which is the Imperious Curse, and he's acting, and he even tries to strike Cedric Diggory, but Cedric and Harry are very cohesive and working together, and ultimately Cedric ends up getting to the goblet first, but tells Harry that he should take it because he's already saved his life multiple times and looked out for him with the dragons and helped him out in the maze. They come to a conclusion that they'll grab it at the same time, but it's a portkey, and they wind up in Voldemort, specifically Tom Riddle's graveyard. And then there's the ritual, and there's bone given from a dead relative, and Wormtail as the sacrificial servant's blood, and then there's forcibly taken blood from the arch nemesis Harry, who's there, and Wormtail ends up killing Cedric with the Avada Kedavra killing curse, the same curse that Voldemort used on Harry's parents. But ultimately it comes back to the ritual and Wormtail assisting Voldemort to take his true form. And Voldemort is back. Back in black. Voldemort is bad news. The Death Eaters all get the sign. Snape and Karkaroff are talking back in Hogwarts, and Snape is like, I know you're scared because you ratted on a lot of them. But it seems as though this is the first unveiling of Snape being almost a spy for Dumbledore, it seems. And so I haven't read 5, 6, and 7, but there's the hesitancy of Harry not believing that Snape could be good and that Snape is being a spy for Voldemort. But anyway, he doesn't show up to the graveyard. All the Death Eaters do, besides Snape and besides Karkaroff. Harry's witnessing this, and he duels Voldemort. Gosh, it's just such an epic moment as their wands meet, because they're made from the same Sphinx feather, which is Dumbledore's Sphinx. It creates this bubble around them. It basically pulls out the last killings that Voldemort has done, and these ghosts come to aid Harry, one of which being Cedric, and then also his parents. They create a distraction so that Harry can return Cedric's body and return back to Hogwarts. And it's this beautiful moment, but also accompanied by grief and death. And but to see Harry's parents pop back in the picture is quite powerful. And so we're back at Hogwarts, and everybody's grieving. And meanwhile, while everybody's grieving, Mad-Eye Moody takes Harry off the scene, and Dumbledore knows something is up. And this is where it is uncovered that Mad-Eye Moody is in fact not Mad-Eye Moody, and it's Barty Crouch Jr. and has been taking Polyjuice Potion out of his flask all year, and disguising himself as Mad-Eye Moody. Then it unfolds that what he saw in the Pensive, and it makes sense why Mad-Eye was trying to help Harry win, because he needed him to get to the portkey and grab it to then advance and meet Voldemort in the graveyard. And it's freaking nuts. Then we are brought back to the bureaucracy of the truth versus appeasing the general public. And so Fudge chooses politics over the general public and refuses to believe Harry's side of the story. And Dumbledore feels as though it is the right thing to do to honor Cedric by telling the true story so that people know how he died. And so this really sets up the entirety of book 5. As I'm only 20 pages in, I will be reviewing that as well and talking about favorite chapter, bookmark pages, best quotes as well. So check that out if you want to talk more about Harry Potter. I mean, if you're here, you must love Harry Potter because I know I am rambling about this. Genuinely just so enthralled with this series that I am up at midnight while my wife is on her ER rotation. Yeah, we're just going at it. But anyway, this sets up for book 5. Dumbledore is preparing for war. He is telling people to take their places. He's talking to Hagrid and Madame Maxime, trying to get them to win the alliances of the, what are they called? Of the Giants. And he's talking to the Weasleys, telling them to take their stand. And he understands that Fudge is going to turn a blind eye just simply because he doesn't want to disturb the peace. Whereas Dumbledore knows that to have a fighting chance, they need to act now. That's the conclusion of the book, and golly, it's a freaking doozy. I finished this yesterday, which was the impetus of me starting this channel. Ultimately, it's going to lead into a book club, but not until I finish the Harry Potters. Literally, my readings for the month of December. This is December 2nd as of this recording. But the reading for the rest of the year is literally 5, 6, and 7, which are some behemoth books. I mean, this is like 2,000 pages. Anyway, if you want to check out this review, go here and then continue on. Yeah, before I take opinions for future books, just wanted to start this thing because, you know, I want to talk to people like you and hear what chapters and dog-eared pages and whimsical tidbits and life lessons you got out of these books. I think it makes it a lot more fun. So anyway, that's the conclusion for this book. The order begins to form. Now for lessons from Goblet of Fire, and then we'll get into the dog-eared pages. So I'll tell you the pages that resonated most deeply with me, and I would love to hear which ones you loved. So one of which is that of Fudge in the ending, and it's the institutional failure of the Ministry and them choosing to not rock the boat, if you will, and pick stability over strength, or stability over truth, rather. And so you can apply this to government, you can apply this to companies, you can apply this to any kind of leader, coaches, whatever it may be. And confronting the inevitable is something that I found admirable, as always, from Dumbledore, and his leadership in this book is really just teeing up the rest of the series. You can just tell. Also, Cedric Diggory and his death. This is the first time Harry is seeing it up close. He has dreams, of course, of his parents, but witnessing the death of a friend and a colleague in the graveyard, it really clarifies his mission and signifies that it is the fact that the days are numbered that gives life meaning. And you just know that shit's about to get real in Hogwarts and in this wizardly world, and you're pulling for Harry, you're pulling for the Weasleys, you're excited about what's to come. Yeah, so I think that those would be the two life lessons, is pressing into the fear rather than running from it, and also understanding that, unfortunately, politics influence behavior in a lot of different systems, and trying to see through that. Now, as for favorite chapter, as always, I would love to know your favorite chapter. Obviously, people will like it if they agree with it down below. But I think my favorite chapter, based off the amount of dog-eared pages over here, yeah, it's going to be The Parting of Ways. It's going to be like second to last chapter. It's literally just talking about them gearing up to go to battle. Dumbledore and Fudge having their disagreement, and Dumbledore saying, hey dude, better pony up or we're about to get rocked. And him talking about the Dementors and talking about the Giants and talking about him not being strong enough to face the truth. I think The Parting of Ways, Dumbledore saying, hey, screw the Ministry, I'm going to say it how it is like the most noble thing. And recognizing that Voldemort is in fact back. All right, so as for quotes, this one literally comes out of that chapter, but I think it is just so true to, especially like tumultuous times in politics like what we have right now. But Dumbledore says, and I quote, "We are only as strong as we are united, as weak as we are divided." Damn. That's a good quote. Like, Dumbledore has got bars, and that is certainly one of them. All right, and then for the second favorite quote, and then we will get into dog-eared pages. There are so many, like, hard-hitting, pithy, punchy, good quotes in these books, and I think that's why no matter what age, there are so many, like, applicable parts. And the other quote that I am going to go with is going to be, I'm going to do an honorable mention. I'm sorry. We're going to go 3 quotes. So the second quote is going to be, "Soon we must all face the choice between what is right and what is easy." And then the honorable mention is going to be, "It matters not what someone is born, but what they grow to be." All right, dog-eared pages, rapid fire. You can do the sleuthing yourself as to what is in those pages. We have page 128, page 137, page 187. That's about the Triwizard Tournament. Page 216. That is about the unforgivable curses. So you can see what all those are at 216. Page 255. This is about the Goblet of Fire and the Triwizard Tournament and basically the aspiring champions. Page 380. This is about some secrets that Winky and Dobby know regarding the Crouches. I think that page for 380 really starts to signify the secrets that later come to the forefront with Mad Eye. It's page 380. Page 507, this is about the second task and Harry's recognition for his noble acts. Page 667, the Priori Incantatum. This is about both Harry and Voldemort's wand being made from the same Sphinx feather and the ghost coming from Voldemort's wand. It's just super cool scene. Beautiful part in the movie too. I watched that today, and that was like probably the coolest part in the movie. Page 708, the Parting of Ways. This is Dumbledore getting real in Fudge's face. "You are blinded," said Dumbledore, his voice rising now, the aura of power around him palpable, his eyes blazing once more. "By the love of the office you hold, Cornelius. You place too much importance, and you always have done, on the so-called purity of blood. You fail to recognize that it matters not what someone is born, but what they grow to be." This book slaps so hard. Like, golly, it's so freaking good. And I'm so glad I've been able to dork out with you all here. Please let me know which pages you loved in this book, which chapter was your favorite. And with that, I am signing off. If you have enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. Helps the channel so much. And yeah, catch you on the next book review. Peace.